and his humor were felt on and off the field. CBS's James Brown on Madden's incredible career.
I first knew of John Madden when I saw the passionate young coach leading the Oakland Raiders, the bad boys of the NFL in the early 1970s. Madden was a player's coach who did not have many rules. He simply said, be on time, be prepared, and play like heck when I tell you to. That led Oakland to 7 AFC titles and a Super Bowl championship in 1977.
And the Raiders have won. They are the world champs.
Madden then took his love of the game to the broadcast booth.
Hi, I'm John Madden. Pat Summerall and I have been with both the teams all week.
Teaming up with the unselfish Pat Summerall to call games on CBS and then to Fox and NBC Sports for 30 years, earning 16 Emmys along the way.
We call it just BGD, just big guy defense, that's all.
John Madden never stopped coaching football. For millions of Americans, he took a complicated game, made it fun and easier to understand.
They bring from the outside and boom, 2 up the middle.
He became a national pitchman, endorsing several products.
Boom, tough acting, Tinactin.
And later a video game Hall of Famer. He kicked off a revolution in the industry, creating a game with EA Sports, the groundbreaking football franchise, Madden NFL. His voice, his smile were infectious, and his fear of flying was legendary. When John Madden pulled up to the stadium in his tour bus, the Madden Cruiser, everyone knew that this was the game of the week. The game was John Madden, and we were all better having the opportunity to work with and learn from him. James Brown, CBS News, New York.
And we'll be right back.
Thing to note that anybody under the age of 50 really has no firsthand recollection of him as a coach. And yet, younger people definitely know who John Madden is, either through his broadcasting career or through the commercials. I mean, he was not just an important football figure. He was a part of American pop culture.
John Madden was the man. I mean, as a high school coach for myself at the time, and being a Bay Area guy my whole life, you know, he was special. You know, I think young people, young guys who are
name of one of the most successful video game franchises in history, John Madden, has died at the age of 85, and sports analyst Mike Golic joins us now to remember John Madden. Mike, I mean, you know, so much to talk about. There's just no way we're going to cram it all into this segment, but simply put, he was the voice of football. He made it so relatable to people around the country. What did he mean to you?
Oh, listen, it was so much to me because while I was born and raised in Cleveland, the Oakland Raiders were my team growing up. He took over that team in '69. I was about 8 years old up until about I was going to high school. So he was the coach of the team that I loved. And then when he was broadcasting games through my college years and then my entire NFL career, 1984, the All-Madden team came into being right before I got into the NFL. Let me tell you, Jim, guys loved making it to the Pro Bowl, but if you made the All-Madden team, and that team, young generation, if you don't know, Google this, man. If you had blood on your uniform, blood on your face, dirt all over yourself, snot bubbles all over the place, you were making the All-Madden team, and you wanted to make the All-Madden team. And then to be part of his EA Madden sports game, which started in '88 but really took off, I think, more in '90. I mean, this was all during the height of my career. Just him calling games, Jim, he did it in just a natural way, you know, boom, bang, bang, right. You know, I mean, he just had a ball doing it. He was just himself.
And he talked to you about it like he was a guy on the bar stool next to you or your uncle on the couch at home. John Madden commented on football, as you said, in life, and had an incredible sense of humor. We have one of his clips, and there's so many clips. This is obviously not the greatest of all-time Madden clip, but it's just a clip that demonstrates what it was like listening to John Madden call a game. He would talk about some of the activity on the sideline. Let's take a look.
I'm looking as close as I can, and I can't see any beard, but that's a 4-day beard, isn't it?
It's a passive attempt.
No, it's very, very passive.
Here's Terry Allen. Out to about the 20. There it is.
See, now here it is, but see, I mean, he got a little in here and a little up there here, but he doesn't have anything here at all. Watch, when you take it off, he doesn't have anything going up in there.
He's talking about Troy Aikman can't grow a beard. You know, he's using the telestrator.
The telestrator, I mean, he really brought that into play, and I'm just not on football. Jim, the best thing I can say about him was he didn't get bogged down in terminology of the game, and you said it right. He was like sitting next to you on a bar stool talking to you about football. The best two words I can use about him was he was a football guy, and he will so be missed. And by the way, loved going through that Madden Cruiser. That was a really cool bus.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, in terms of his lasting legacy, what do you remember the most, do you think?
Oh, I think what I'll remember is just how he relayed the game to everybody. That's what you want when millions of people are sitting and watching the game. How do you take in a game? You could tell his pure passion and joy for the game. He just wanted to talk football, and that was it, and that came across.
And, of course, Pat Summerall, the way he would always say, and join us for 60 Minutes and Murder, she wrote. He would always do that as well. Yeah. Sports analyst Mike Golic, thanks for joining us, talking about John Madden. We appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Aaron.
People in the game. Madden died yesterday at 85 and leaves a legacy that stretches from the field to the broadcast booth and beyond. Harry Smith takes a look back at his remarkable life.
Okay, come on, defense! Let's start off and stay after the whole.
John Madden was bigger than the game of football. He had the unrivaled ability to translate the arcane intricacies of X's and O's and turn them into fun.
They had a baby bucket, so this is a baby bucket.
I guess that clears up the question as to whether they're married or not.
And boom, bam!
Al Michaels shared the broadcast booth with Madden for 7 seasons.
It's just super football. I mean, I love these kinds of games.
He loved the game like nobody has ever loved the game of football, and you knew it. And he was excited, and he was excitable, and people just gravitated to him.
But before he became a broadcasting legend, Madden coached the Oakland Raiders to 10 consecutive winning seasons and a Super Bowl victory. His teams were notable in their day for their off-field freedom and their relentless play.
When they go out in the field, you go after everything in sight.
For the demonstrative Madden, football was a game to be played, to be coached with enthusiasm. When Madden moved to the broadcast booth, he took that same almost manic energy with him.
Boom, we cross him. The left goes to the right goes to the left. This guy crosses here, he crosses here. They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we're throwing to.
Audiences loved it.
Now this is what the game of football is all about.
And advertisers, too.
Like I was saying, light beer tastes great.
But hidden beneath those gesticulations was a scholar just a few hours short of a PhD in education. Madden could pique the interest of even the most reluctant fan. Of Madden, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell writes, "Nobody loved football more than Coach. He was football." And the Raiders said this of Madden: his impact on the game, both on and off the field, was immeasurable. Young people know Madden as the name of a wildly successful video game. For the rest of us, he was a wonderful, one-of-a-kind broadcaster who had us with this word.
Oh, that's what I say.
Harry Smith, NBC News, New York.
He will be missed by football fans and everyone else, too. That is Nightly News for this Wednesday. I'm Kristen Welker. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and have a very good night.
NFL legend John Madden died yesterday at the age of 85. Jeffrey Brown looks now at what he meant to the game, particularly after he stopped coaching.
This is it, Curtis.
January 9, 1977, Pasadena, California.
The 11th Super Bowl is underway.
The Oakland Raiders hoist head coach John Madden onto their shoulders, celebrating the team's first Super Bowl championship. 10 years later, Madden told the NewsHour of his straightforward philosophy of dealing with players.
They show up when I told them to, and when we talked and taught, if they paid attention, and then if they went out and played like heck, when you talk, what else is there? What other rules do you need? I mean, I don't care if they had beards or, sideburns or bell-bottom pants or tied their shoes or not.
But a decade of coaching at a Hall of Fame level was just the start for John Madden. In a 3-decade career as an exuberant everyman broadcaster, he would go on to change the way the game was watched and understood, becoming a preeminent face and voice of football. He started at CBS alongside the late Pat Summerall. They quickly became the network's top announcing duo. From 1979 to 2009, Madden won 16 Emmy Awards and covered 11 Super Bowls for 4 networks.
Here's a corner, safety corner.
He broke down complicated plays using his Telestrator video chalkboard and entertained millions with his signature sound effects.
And boom, the ball's there. He gets walls. Boom, stay on your feet. Boom. He gets knocked right out of the screen.
He told the NewsHour how he saw his job in the booth.
What I try and do is not show the obvious. You know, that I know if Joe Morris runs the ball around the right end and has a big play, everyone's going to see that anyway. What I try and do is look ahead to find how it happened or why it happened.
And there was more that continues to this day with Madden NFL football, one of the most successful video game empires of all time. Today, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said in a statement that nobody loved football more than Coach. He was football. One of his great broadcasting partnerships at both ABC and NBC was with Al Michaels, who told me earlier today why he thinks Madden was, quote, as important as anybody in the history of football.
Well, there have been a number of really great coaches. So John gets into that category because he had the highest winning percentage of any coach in history who won 100 or more games. So on one level, you have him in the pantheon of coaches. On the next level, he created a new template in broadcasting and became maybe the most iconic broadcaster of his time. So you've got that. And then he went out and created a video game, and he was immersed in the production and the development of that game. He didn't just lend his name to it. And that made millions and millions and millions of young fans for the National Football League. So when you combine all of those three, that's why I say, when you look at the whole body of work, there was no more important man in the history of the National Football League.
He is often credited so much with changing sports broadcasting, bringing in that everyman aspect, the preparation for each game. You were there with him. What was the most important lesson or thing you saw in him?
I think what made John, among other things, was his genuineness. And he worked very hard in preparation. He already knew a ton going in, and then he would immerse himself to the nth degree and get into the forensics of everything. And I think one of the things with John is he would take things that were seemingly complicated and make them simple and relevant and accessible to the audience. So when you hear a broadcaster talk about a 3 technique, only a football coach or a football player or somebody totally immersed in the game would know what that is. John would never use phrases like that. He'd explain what that was, and then he had a lot of fun doing it. And with the telestrator and the buckets of Gatorade dumped on coaches and telestrating what took place right there, John was the whole package.
He's one of those people, so many millions in the culture feel like we know him personally, but you really did. What was he like personally? Was the person we saw on TV, was that really him?
Exactly, Jeffrey, that was him. And to me, one of the most wonderful things about having been his partner for 7 years is the meals that we would have away from the work environment. Obviously, we were in the game or in the booth and preparing for it. That's one thing. But just to go to dinner or to lunch or to breakfast with John and talk about anything and everything. John was a very well-read man. John was a man who understood everything that was going on in the world. John was a very curious man. And he traveled across the country in that bus, and he got to see what we call, those of us who live on either coast, flyover country. We fly over it. John drove through it, back and forth hundreds of times, and got to know the people and what made people tick.
You know, you spent so much time with him. You're talking about in the booth, you're talking about on the bus, I guess, and restaurants, hotels. Give me an anecdote.
So we're having dinner one night in Green Bay, and French onion soup. I don't want the onions. I hate the onions, but I love the broth, the crouton, and the cheese. So we're at dinner, and I ordered French onion soup without the onions in Green Bay. And he said, "What? What are you doing?" I said, "John, I just love the other parts of it." So he had the chef come out, and John was laughing hysterically, and he had the chef come out and explain how you make French onion soup without the onions. So that was John. He was a riot in so many ways.
That's a great story. X's and O's of French onion soup, too, huh?
Right. You name it, he had it, I know.
You know, it's interesting to think that for younger generations, of course, he's better known for the video games than for the broadcasting that he did with you and so many others.
With John, even though you might not remember him as a coach, and maybe you caught him toward the end of his broadcasting career, but he's made millions of fans with that game. People, everybody, every kid I knew through the years, and even to this day, they play Madden. They've learned football through the Madden game, and that's made the NFL millions and millions more fans.
All right, Al Michaels on the life and legacy of the great John Madden. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
A man who clearly loved the game and made us love it too. Our thoughts are with his friends and family. Meanwhile, on the NewsHour Online, the tight-knit...
Great was that he believed in the viewer. He believed in defense as they would be learning about Turducken and the Madden Cruiser. He was the ultimate football guy, and he is already sorely missed. Here now to honor the Hall of Famer is another member enshrined in Canton, Super Bowl champion and legendary New York Jets quarterback Joe Namath. Thank you, sir, for joining me this evening. What did John Madden mean to the game from your perspective?
Well, you covered a whole lot of the good things, of course. And from my perspective, I knew John, and I also knew several of the guys that he coached. We kind of crossed over there. I played with the Jets against the Raiders when John was there. And Kenny Stabler is a buddy, and he used to tell me stories about John. Jim Otto, these guys that played under John, loved him. I mean, he was a straight shooter. He was down to earth. He didn't hold back on things, but he treated these guys, he treated people the way he wanted people to be treated with respect. And when we're talking about the way he conveyed the football knowledge of his to the millions of fans out here, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And so we lost one of a kind, and my condolences certainly go out to his family. But, you know, there was a time when John started this all Madden team, and we were sitting in a dressing room. And I was sitting right beside a guy that was so special as well, Walter Payton. And I'm thinking, man, this guy is something, and John is something. Just where I was at that time, I was so thankful and so fortunate to be there. John just made us all feel so good, and we admired him a great deal.
It strikes me that just as you were so critical as a part of this in the early days of the success of the NFL, John Madden was essential to the NFL becoming the dominant sport, the sport that has a day devoted to it, you know, the sport that really drives America in every respect in a way that football, pro football, had not been before. It really is amazing to think about how much of an impact he had on making the game, America's game, at the center of our lives. In terms of anything like him, do you think that we're ever going to see anyone have that kind of impact, to be able to go from the coaching experience to the popularizer of the game, to someone who democratizes it in a sense? Or was he just someone who was just one of a kind who can never be repeated?
Well, I think it was someone that was one of a kind, no doubt about that. But as far as someone else stepping up, getting out there and winning the hearts and the admiration and the respect of people out there that admire the football sport, I hope someone else comes along like that. And also, you mentioned the NFL. It is the NFL, but John was in the AFL. We were in the AFL to start out with, you see. And the things weren't always polite, comfy, cozy, so to speak, between the two leagues. To
say the least.
Yeah. But there was a nice, happy merger after we had to prove ourselves and win a championship against them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say a nice, happy merger, but what was it that Al Davis said about it? He refused to go to the meeting because he said, "Remember Yalta." I mean,
he was beautiful. He was terrific. Yes. What an owner he was. A smart man, and a New Yorker to start with. Al was wonderful.
I grew up, as so many of us did, listening to John Madden and thinking of him as being the definition of a broadcaster. Someone that could entertain even when the game wasn't entertaining. Is there some aspect of his call, or one call in particular, a game that he called, that sticks out in your mind as being, an example of something you'll never forget that he said on the air?
Oh man, I heard the things you said about John initially there before I came on, and I got tickled, of course. He was a smart man, very intelligent man, but he knew how to convey his feelings to the people that he respected. Again, he respected people. He wanted them to enjoy what he was saying, as well as teach them about the game. We saw him with that telestrator, the way he had handled it. We'd see him mess it up and do whatever, say things that were laughable, and we laughed along with him. We never laughed at him. He was sharp, and he was teaching us football. And millions upon millions of people today are saddened.
He was a great teacher, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining me tonight. I want to thank you all for watching Fox.